Hello everyone, my name is Ven. I want to first off start off by thanking everybody for checking out my videos and subscribing. I know it's been a few days ever since, it's actually been one day ever since I started uploading, and I've gained about 200 views ever since then and a few subscribers. I want to give a shout out to some of the guys I made backgrounds for, and I want to give a big shout out to Crazy Executor from PC Shot of the Day, link in the description. He helped me out, give me a little bit of publicity, and hopefully he'll continue helping me out. So, big shout out to you, man. Thank you. Anyways, though, guys, today I'm going to be showing you all how to create cracked text in Cinema 4D, such as, this right here. Well, that's the cell render, like that, where it looks all cut up and it's jagged and looks like it's falling off the text. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to do that, and you guys can look at it in this here. It's actually being used here, and it actually gives it a pretty cool effect. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to do that. First things first, you're going to need a plugin called Thrausi for Cinema 4D. I'm running R13, so I need the 1.22 version for R12, but it also works for R13, so no worries right there. Alright, so first things first, guys, I'm just going to load up a Lightroom. I haven't made my own yet, so I'm just going to be using one of my friends. So first things first, you're just going to want to create a motext, which you can do by going to MoGraph and then motext. It'll pull all this up. My layer's called change this text, but I'll just change it to motext so you guys can have some reference. Alright, so we're going to name this tutorial, I can't spell. Alright, so as you can see, it's going to create a text image, and if you render it out, then it's just going to show plain text, and that's about it. It's not cracked, it's not anything, it's a little bleak. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to actually increase the depth. I like doing about 150, something like that, and as you can see, it increases the depth pretty drastically. So we're going to load up some materials, and we're going to use one of Rated's. He's actually a really big inspiration to me. So first things first, guys, we're going to actually duplicate a layer, the motext layer, which you can do by clicking on the layer, Control-C, and then Control-V. I like keeping them on the same. I like having the duplicate underneath it. It makes sense to me. And then what I like to do, guys, is I like to go over here to Caps, Fillet, and what you can see when it renders it out, you can't really see it too well, but it does add a little bit of a bevel. It'll be more obvious if I set this to Cap, and it'll just make it, like right here, it'll look like it has two layers. Like there's the outer layer and it's a little bit darker and it has the shading around it. I like to do that, guys, because what it does is it enables you to be able to put a color on the sides, and then you can have the center color. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to set the top layer to black and then the outside layer to red, and as you can see, it gives the colors like that. So now that we have our text, what we're going to want to do, guys, is select both text layers, which you can do by clicking on one and then either shift clicking on the other or control clicking on the other. I just use control if it's just two. And then what you're going to want to do, guys, is go to plugins, Thrausi. Alright, now there's two ways you can do this. We're using about 150. Yeah, we're using 150. So I'm going to actually use about 20 pieces. And then you can, I like to usually use Veroni, but for some reason recently it's been glitching out. I guess it's because it's still in beta, so it'll need to be updated. If you're going to use Veroni, make sure to set however many pieces. Say you have a 300 depth, I'd say use 30 pieces. That sort of deal. But if you're using about 150, I suggest 20. So you're going to want to highlight clear edge and then just click break now, leave everything else the same. But for this tutorial, for this sake of time, we're just going to use random because it's a little bit faster. Leave everything default and then just click break now. And as you can see, it'll start breaking up and it'll look as if it's cutting it. So it's going to be doing that, and basically what it does, it creates individual chunks of the image. So it ends up giving a pretty nice effect. The only problem I find with the random is it gives it more of a bent sort of light curve effect. I don't know what to call it. It looks as if like that. That's one thing I don't like. I like it where it's flat, but it's still like cracks, which is what Veroni does. So the only problem with Veroni, as I stated earlier, is that it glitches out and it can crash your Cinema 4D, which actually happened in my speed art for Puyos, or whatever you want to say his name as. Alright, so our text is cracked now, as you can see. It's going to show it cracked here, but when you render it, it's not going to be cracked. So what you have to do now is you're going to want to go back to MoGraph, go to Effector, and then Random. Just create a random. Alright, now you're going to see all of these right here. They're going to have like a letter, and then whatever, some numbers. It's going to say Thrausi, and then however many pieces you cut it as. You're going to want to shift click to select all of them, and then drag them over this. Alright, now there's going to be all these red X's. You need to make them checks just by clicking on them. And as you guys can see on the screen, everything's just going everywhere, so we're going to fix that in just a second. Alright, so what you're going to want to do is go back up to Random, the Effector, and you're going to see right here where it says Strength. I suggest about 7, but anywhere under 10 is decent. So as you can see here, everything's kind of cut up, it's bent, it's falling apart. So even as you can see it rendering, you can still see the cracks. So I don't want to, for time's sake, I'm not going to render it out like that. So I'm just going to save it, and we're just going to create it on the desktop. So we'll say tutorial. I cannot spell. Alright, so that's that. That's part 1 of how to do it. Now you're just going to want to render it out. And you don't, the Lightroom really does not matter. The Lightroom is just there to create some reflection or light, and of course light up the text. So I do suggest having one, although it's not critical, but if you want your graphics to not turn out flat, then I do suggest having it. So this is going to take a little bit to render. Basically, guys, once you do this, you're going to want to end up taking this, and then you're going to want to come into Photoshop. You're going to open it, and then I'll show you what to do once this renders, because this is really annoying in my opinion. But anyways, about my channel, I'm gonna rant about that for a second while this renders. As you guys know, I was the owner of a community a little while ago, but literally about 20 minutes ago I announced that we're going to be shutting it down. Probably for just a few months, maybe permanently, we're not certain yet. The reason why, guys, is because none of us have time anymore. None of the owners or staff members have time anymore. Everybody's kind of just splitting apart. It's falling apart, that sort of deal. So we're going to be taking a break from it, and then we will come back and we will hopefully be able to bring it back to its former state, if not better. So it really shouldn't be too long before it comes back. It's just right now we're all busy with college and school and work and basically just life in general. I have a lot going on in my life right now, and I don't have time. So I'm pretty certain all the other guys can agree with me. Alright, anyways, this is part 1 here. We're going to have to go back in. We're going to recreate it. You're going to go over here to save, change your file name. I just put cell afterwards. Then you're going to go down here to Effect, click it, and then you're going to go to Cell Renderer. Alright, that's going to add something right here called Cell Renderer. You're going to want to click on the edge color, set it to white, background color to black. And now what that's going to do is it's going to take all of these and it's going to create the lines. It's not going to render out the actual text, it's just going to create lines. So we'll go back and we will re-render that. While that's rendering, we're going to open up the main file, just tutorial. See right here, it shows that it's just the lines, it's not 3D text. Alright, so we have our text. We will rename this, I keep saying turtoil, I don't know why, but whatever. It's tutorial, gotta get that engraved in my head. Alright, so first things first, guys, is you're going to want to double click on the layer right here. It'll pull up a layer style box. You're going to select gradient overlay. It's going to look a little weird. It's just going to look like the text, but it's covered up by a gradient. So what you're going to want to do is go to blend mode and click overlay. And I like to add a little bit to the scale, about 115. And that what it'll do is it'll make the bottom of the text darker and the top part a little bit lighter. So that always looks nice. It gives it a little bit more of a lighting effect. And now we're going to go over to drop shadow. Increase the opacity just a little bit to about 80 something. Distance gets reduced a little bit. I'd say about 2 or 3. The spread doesn't really matter too much. Just keep it under about 20. And then just increase the size a little bit. So that's all you really need for that. You can add an inner shadow, but I prefer not to, usually. So as you can see now, it's darker on the bottom, lighter on the top, and it has a drop shadow. And here's our text right here. Alright, so what you can do now is, now that we have this, we can exit out of Cinema 4D. We will go to place, get the cell render. It's going to cover up this, which is why you do not want to resize or move the other text yet. What you're going to want to do is place this on top first, go to layer style, and then set to screen. Alright, that's going to do that. You can set it to some other stuff, but screen works the best, to be honest. So, as you can see, screen is the best. You're going to want to decrease your opacity down to about 80, 75 through 80, somewhere through there. And then one thing I like to do, guys, is I'll like to add a texture over it. So I like a rocky sort of texture. It can be parchment, it can be metal, it can be wood, it can be anything you want, really, whatever floats your boat. I prefer either metal or parchment. I don't know why, it just gives it a nice, little look. But I'm going to use a grunge for this one. As you can see here, I'm not too certain how this is going to work out, guys, but we'll see. So what you're going to want to do, first things first, I know a lot of people are going to say, hey, why don't you just create a clipping mask? Don't. Alright, that's going to mess up with the cell render, and then it's going to be weird, okay? What you're going to want to do, guys, is control click on the little layer right here. If you hold control, you can see that it'll select that if you hover over the image of the layer. Click the image, and it's going to highlight the entire layer. Alright, now go to select or Control Shift I, whichever, and select inverse. Now while you have the texture highlighted, you're going to want to go to your eraser tool, set your hardness to whatever. I prefer 100 because it's the fastest. Now this isn't going to delete all of it over top of your text, but it is going to delete all the excess. So, and that's what you want to delete. Alright, now just Control D to deselect it, guys. Go to layer styles, set to overlay, and there you go. Now that wasn't a very good texture, but it'll work. So now you're gonna want to set the color of the texture to whatever color you set your 3D text to, which all you gotta do is go back to layer styles, color overlay, set it to the color right here, and then go to hue. And as you guys can see, it now, you can't really see too much of it. I'm gonna add a different texture real quick, guys, because that one didn't work out too well. We're gonna use a really obvious one real quick, because that one was just ugh. Alright, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna shrink this just a bit, stretch it over the text, re-highlight the text, and go delete the excess again. Oops. Control Shift I, and there it is. Alright, now overlay, and now as you can see the cracked text on top of the cracked text. It has the cracked texture on it. It looks like a rock somewhere, something like that. So it looks decent now. That's going to be what you're going to want. Now, one thing you can do to make this easy, you just merge all visible or flatten the layer, whatever you want to call it. In GIMP, it's flatten layer or image. In this, it's merge visible. Do that if you want. You can open up your YouTube template. I have my own. And then you open it up. And yeah, basically you can just now pull down the bar, which I'll do right now. See, you can pull down the bar and then drag this over, and now the whole layer is on your background. Rotate it to whatever side you want. Just shrink it down a little bit, guys. Line it up. And there you go. There's your text. You can add stuff behind it, on top of it, whatever you guys want. That's how you create Thrausi Cinema 4D cracked text, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Have a nice day.